The following material may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, see? Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Because we're number one. We're number one. We're number one. In poverty. Did you see that in yesterday's paper? Out of 68 major cities, we're number one. Cleveland's number one. In poverty. Right big voice, man. Who am I? Who are we?
The Rick Gilmore Show on News Radio WTAM 1100.
Open phones, America, this evening, 578-1100 in the classic 216 area code. Toll-free, 888-723-WTAM. Tomorrow is play a prank on your coworker day. Take a flat object and pry out the M and the N on their keyboard, on their computer, and switch them. And then watch the fun begin. How about that? I was reading something. A buddy of mine had a list of pranks you can pull on people at work. Because we're number one in poverty. Ladybug Jane Campbell, the queen of the flying hubcap, wants to have some sort of a summit. What kind of a summit can you have? You know, I kept thinking, well, maybe... check. So we're going to have a summit about what? We're going to sit down and say, harumph. There's no jobs in this town. Harumph. Well, maybe it's time for regime change with Ladybug Jane Campbell. Maybe we should recall Ladybug Jane Campbell. Here is something very interesting, more interesting than the Job Summit, which I guess won't do anything other than have a bunch of politicians sit around and eat food at the taxpayer's expense. This was something I thought was more interesting, and it got buried away on page A12. John Dean, a central figure in the Watergate scandal, who helped bring down the Nixon administration, is now throwing stones at the Bush White House. In a City Club speech Friday, Dean portrayed President Bush's administration as being veiled in secrecy and so concerned about re-election that it saw political gold in the events of September 11th. Dean had a receptive audience, most apparently old enough to remember Dean's riveting June 1973 Watergate Committee Senate testimony that laid the cover-up at President Nixon's feet. Dean, 65, opened his address with a well-received joke about the City Club microphones picking up his voice. Blah, blah, blah. Dean has written and lectured extensively about his White House experience. His newest book is Worse Than Watergate, The Secret Presidency of George W. Bush. In his speech, Dean chided the president for issuing an executive order that prevents the public from seeing President Reagan's presidential papers, a matter now in litigation. Dean speculated that those papers also covered Bush's father's vice presidency in an administration that was embroiled in the Iran-Contra scandal, where the U.S. provided funds to Nicaraguan rebels from money it received for selling arms to Iran. Now, this is what's interesting. Dean told the audience that Bush's vice president, Dick Cheney, has become a co-president, fulfilling the role as head of government while Bush enjoys the pomp of the presidency. I think Cheney has been very clever in letting George Bush wake up every morning and believe he is the president, said Dean. Ah, excellent. I see a timesheet in the other room. I'd looked everywhere. I'd scoured the four corners of the earth to find a timesheet at the radio station. We have a whole stack of ones for September. Anyway, I thought it was interesting that John Dean blasts this administration. And I believe it's the truth. And unfortunately, everywhere I go during the week, I am embroiled in political conversation. It's very difficult for me to do that, especially at a VFW or in a bar. You know, there's a couple things you're not supposed to talk about. Well, people, they know what I do for a living. Oh, I've heard you before. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? I said, don't you know it's a bad idea to talk politics in a bar? It's a worse idea to talk politics in a VFW? When this gets into a very sticky area where we can talk politics on the radio, then I should turn off my cell phone so it doesn't make any noise on the air. Ah, there we go. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, they can call me down here at the radio station. This present administration has to go. And that, as they say, is that. The reason why the city of Cleveland is ranked 68 is the reason why they should even have to rank the cities at all. And the reason why is there's no jobs. And the reason why is this foolhardy adventure going into Iraq did not help anything. How many people do you know that sit around and say, gee, all these troops they're talking about there, how come they're not over here protecting our borders? How come they're not protecting that Brazilian in the marathon from getting jerked out of first place? Why? Well, the jobs are getting exported overseas. It's very simple. The manufacturing base in Cleveland, they showed in the newspaper a little graph of the manufacturing base under Clinton and then the manufacturing base under Bush. I don't know as if you can entirely blame Bush for, obviously. I did never give credit to Clinton for the economy. I should not be chiding George Bush himself. But the administration's idea that we need outsourcing for everything and it should come from overseas is not helping anything. Unfortunately, do you have any ideas? Because I sat around and read that article and thought about it and thought, we're no longer manufacturing things in this country. What's Ladybug Jane Campbell been doing about getting jobs back? I don't know, other than talking about biomedical and biotechnical. As far as I'm concerned, if you've got a mortgage payment to make, that's pie in the sky, okay? And trust me, I understand the poverty level. I'm below it, okay? This is what makes me regret not leaving this town. I had many offers to leave, to go to other cities, and I turned them down because I wanted to stay in Cleveland. For what? For family and friends, that's important. For money? For wealth? No. No. And this is why, and I have been calling for this for a long time, and so has Mike Trevisano, heard weekdays at 3 here on Cleveland's only news radio, WTAM 1100. We need casino gambling. Do you understand how badly we need casino gambling to try and solve this problem? Try and get some money back into this city. I have been saying this over and over for years. Bob the Jellyfish Taft, the mayor of governor. Maybe I demoted him on purpose. Governor of the great state of Ohio seems to be all against it, along with King George V, who pulls his strings. And just as John Dean chided the Bush administration, well, the Bush administration deserves chiding. Well, I think we have co-governors, and one of them's Voinovich and the other one's Taft. And that's the way it is. Wheeling, West Virginia. The town where the steel mill went away. The banks down there are called Steel Valley Bank. And they're still in business. But there's really nothing to do down there as far as a job other than, you work in the corner bakery or you work at the gas station or you're in the service industry. You're a waiter or a waitress or... And then along came Wheeling Island, Wheeling Downs. They were prepared. The people that had the dough were prepared to buy downtown Wheeling. Every street by street, buy them and make the entire downtown of Wheeling a casino, a gambling parlor, because they knew that they would always make their money back on gambling. And I live right on the edge of the flats. And have you been down the flats lately? Oh, it's sad. It really is so sad. Have you been down the flats during the week? Say you go to the East Bank of the Flats or whatever, you look around. You can park on the street. There's nothing going on other than maybe 150 motorcycles doing wheelies. Other than that, there's nothing going on. What are we doing with the flats? Look at all that prime real estate. Right on the river. And what are we doing with it? A bunch of nothing. Why couldn't we build a casino down there? You tell me, yay or nay, in favor of a casino or against it? If you're against it, I'd love to know why. Later in the program, I have another article I'm going to read for you that I thought was rather interesting from... Maybe I don't have it. I don't know. It's somewhere in my bag of tricks. I'll look for it. But it was about Vietnam. Dick Fagler wrote it. I thought it was rather interesting. Also, something to go over later was... someone handed me this, and I don't know why. They thought I'd be interested. North Olmsted Community Report from Dennis J. Kucinich. I don't see any sense in reading anything other than the occupation of Iraq. We'll find out what Dennis has to say about the occupation of Iraq a little later in the program. So if we're that poor, we're 68 out of 68 cities that they checked in the level of poverty. Why not casino gambling? I can tell you why Governor Bob the Jellyfish Taft's against it. Bingo and the lottery. I should sue the lottery. Odds are you'll have fun. I'm not having any fun. All right. I think I've won 4 numbers out of 6. 3 times since 1984. Odds are I'm wasting my money. Also later in the program, these are fairly interesting. The amazing coincidences with Lincoln and Kennedy. However, someone noted during the week that if Kennedy were that good of a president, he'd have a car named after him. I don't know about that. Mike, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Rick.
Howdy.
Well, you're so damn long-winded.
I know.
Come on.
I know.
You know what'll bring jobs back to America? If our damn government would stop taxing us so much.
Well, it's funny because they talk about tax cuts, and we pay most of the taxes, us poor people. The little people.
Well, we pay so much as a percentage of our income.
Mm-hmm.
A guy making $50,000 a year, which certainly isn't much nowadays, pays so much in taxes. If our government would give us back that money instead of stealing from us so much, we would spend that money on things. Our economy would grow.
I think it's so frustrating. I was watching a special on Reagan last night, and they talked about how Reagan fought tooth and nail to try and make government smaller. Did he really?
Oh, please. Our government is so big, and they don't even know what they're doing.
And we're so much in debt over Iraq. I mean, your grandkids are going to be trying to pay that off.
Well, not even that. If our government would tell us the truth as to what the real issue is, maybe we'd have some say-so on it.
I've said this for the last couple of weeks, too. We sit around and pee and moan about, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. It's a smokescreen for the good old boy network to get away with God knows what while we're all worrying about the Republican National Convention tomorrow in Madison Square Garden, and it's a dog and pony show.
Rick, think of all the men who fought and died in World War II for our freedom, and what our politicians do to this country today. They dishonor their names.
I believe you're absolutely right. The last war that we won, by the way, and certainly not the soldiers' fault, was served in Vietnam or in Gulf Wars 1 or 2, or certainly not the soldiers' fault. We could have won Vietnam. And Johnson went all wishy-washy and that screwed that up. Yeah, government was supposed to get smaller. It didn't get smaller. It's gotten bigger. It's gotten more intrusive. What do you do about it? We can sit here and complain all night long, which is fine by me. I'll open up the contest lines at 578-1111 for this hour only. Next hour, I have something to give away. Next hour, I have one of those tailgate party truck giveaway chances to win. So we'll keep those contest lines open next hour. But for this hour, that's okay. Let's give you your triple Doppler forecast from Guess Who? TV3 meteorologist Eileen McShay. Oh, lads and lassies, tonight scattered showers and tea storms out there with a bit of flooding possible. Low in the low 60s. Tamale clouds early, then sun in the afternoon. Low 70s. Currently 67 degrees in Cleveland, 67 degrees. You know why I only put 239 beans in me bean soup, don't you? Because one more would be too farty. Rick, you're on the air.
Hey, good to hear you.
Yep, good to be here.
The last thing, okay, before I get off on a rant, actually the motorcade sped on, I've been looking for that on WinMX, and it's out there. It annoys my neighbors because every week I listen to it and I got a stereo out here and the whole world listens to it, but there's something about that that's got a hook.
Oh, I know. It's that honky-tonk woman in the background, you know what I mean?
That's chronologically out of order.
Well, I think it's for entertainment purposes only.
I got you. I digress. The last thing we need is casino gambling, and not for moral reasons, not for anything like that. But you're going to wave that much cash in front of the government, they're going to steal it. That's why we don't have it now, because they haven't all agreed on who's going to get to the trough first. And besides that, we're all service-oriented now. I'm not going to make any money as a pit boss, not as a career. There's nobody going out to Vegas getting rich working in or around a casino.
Here's what bothers me, is that I know a guy, and he will walk into a bar and slam down $1,500 on the bar and say, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to Windsor. I'm not just taking this money out of the city. I'm not taking it out of the state. I'm taking it out of the country. Here, get a good look at it, because that's how much I can afford to lose, $1,500.
But there's not many like him. I'm not going to make any money if there's an MGM Grand downtown. I'm probably going to be the guy that's going to get shot, because they're going to know the bad guys are going to be waiting down there looking for something to do, and it's going to be me. And then, as I'm laying on the pavement, I'm going to get served with tax returns and a bunch of other crap, and my taxes are going to go up because it's going to be dangerous.
I disagree. I've listened to Mike Trevisano talk about this. I've listened to him have guests on. I've talked about it. Crime does not go up around casinos. It goes down. There's guards everywhere.
There's directly around it, but have you ever gotten just slightly too far away from, like, the Motor City Casino up in Detroit? It's great. There's a beautiful halo around those casinos, but it doesn't go on forever.
Well, okay, look at the city of Cleveland. Look at Ohio City. Ohio City is great, right? There's a bunch of fancy houses, but it doesn't go on forever.
Nevertheless, manufacture something, build something, and the answer to that is we're not like the schools. They're cutting wages. Everybody's concerned with wages. We're confusing producing things and doing work and being producers with being employment agencies. The first time that a levy's not passed, we're cutting salaries, we're cutting teachers, we're cutting this, we're doing that. They're not doing anything to improve the quality of the product. I work for a Global 5 company. When things get tough, the first thing they go after is wages, not improving the product, not making the customer happy. That's why things are getting moved out of this country. But, that's going to rebound, too, because water seeks its own level. The answer to this is probably pull the plug on the whole thing, go bankrupt, we go back to living in caves and start this all over again. Because the people that are making money now are going to be making money later, and that's the reason there's no casino gambling here, because they haven't figured out how to screw us yet. What?
All right, we have enough. You're a regular little chatty Cathy doll. Don't you think it would improve the tax base in the city of Cleveland to have a giant casino in the flats? Wouldn't it be nice if... Oh, he's not one of those people that gambles. You know how many people do? Do you know how many people I know that every year go to Vegas or go to Atlantic City or go to West Virginia or Indiana or Detroit or Windsor or Connecticut or Missouri? They're going there to gamble. They're taking the money not just out of the city, not just out of the state, in some cases out of the country. You can sit at home and gamble online. You can sit in front of a computer and gamble. That's how pervasive it is. How many people do you know that play the lottery? Maybe $1 a week, maybe $5 a week, maybe $10 a week, maybe $100 a week. Maybe they're out of control and it's $1,000 a month. I don't know. They put a little warning label on there. Careful, try not to be compulsive and go nuts and spend your kids' money for food and all that sort of thing. But if people, it's a fact, isn't it? If people are taking money out of the state or out of the country to go gamble, then why not have gambling here? People want to do it. Apparently, that's human nature, right? That's what people want to do. It's like telling people, we've got this great idea. It's called prohibition. Nobody's allowed to drink. Chris, you're on the air.
Gilmore, how you doing, man? Long time no talk.
All right.
Hey, I think I've told you before that I used to live in Las Vegas, and the last guy just talking about the casino workers not making any money. Well, I know quite a few people that, deal cards and roulette and all that stuff that make $700, $800, $900 a week. It's pretty good money. They take all the tips and divide them up for a shift. And, I used to date a girl that used to, make $150 a night in tips. So don't tell me that they don't make any money and that they won't make any money. That is crap. Even the people that clean up the cigarette ashtrays and the bathrooms and that, they make good money, $10, $12 an hour. And they're all unionized. So, that is just a stupid argument. Now, the other argument that I'm sick of hearing about casino gambling is it's going to bring degenerates, and we're going to have a city full of degenerates. You already got a city full of degenerates. It doesn't matter. They're going to find a way to gamble, whether it's, shooting craps in the backyard or playing cards every Friday night or betting on the NFL football games on Sunday. So, he did make one good point, though. He does have a point where our politicians that run this state are such buffoons that they probably can't even figure out how to steal our money and who gets it first. He's probably right about that. But as far as this other stuff goes, why, you're right. I don't agree with you hardly at all, Gilmore, but you hit it on the head. Why are we going to give our money to Canada?
Oh, Gilmore, you've done it again. WTAM 1100 Browns beat reporter David Kelly's reports from Berea every day. How about that? As the Browns get ready for the 04 season, get your best Browns coverage on the station with all the balls. That's us, News Radio, WTAM 1100. I'm Rick Gilmore, the thinking man's friend. More of the program after we do a little business with you and coverage of what in the world's happening on Cleveland's only News Radio, WTAM 1100.
Rick Gilmore.
I'm the kind of guy that used to I'd take a pair of pliers and heat up a quarter and throw it to a homeless person.
That's funny. Now, that is funny.
On News Radio WTAM 1100.
Well, I'm not proud. One line open at 578-1111, and that's it. The hardest button to button, indeed. I was thinking in the break, it was interesting, the caller that said, well, you ever go to Greektown and you wander away and, boy, the neighborhood gets really cruddy. Well, a lot of neighborhoods can be really cruddy. Let me tell you about the neighborhood I live in. I live in Tremont. When I was a kid, 25 years ago, we would get down to Quigley or Scranton and drag race and drink beer until the cops chased us out. I clearly remember 25 years ago being on the street I live on. I'm having to want to relieve myself so badly, but we were all afraid to stop the car and get out. That neighborhood was so bad. It's not like that now. I drove by the projects tonight. Valley View over on West 7th. You would not believe all the fresh plywood. You would not believe it. They said they were going to close them projects, and by gum, it looks like it's going to happen. There were 5 cars there, and that's that. And fresh plywood that they had not gotten around to. They put the plywood over the windows. Every time somebody moves out, they condemn that apartment, that complex, or whatever that area. Then they put up plywood, and then they paint it brown so it matches the brick. So you'd drive by, you'd hardly notice. They just looked like windows. Oh, that's plywood over 99.9% of all the windows in the projects. Things change. If I left Tremont now, let me tell you a little story about a buddy of mine, Tremont Troy. He grew up down there, born and raised, when it was all hillbillies and trashy people. You could buy houses for $2,000, $3,000 down there. Now think $200,000 or $300,000. He said he dropped off his car to get it repaired up on Clark and decided to walk home. Now this is a guy who was pretty damn near close to 40, raised in that neighborhood when it was so bad that people would walk around with pistols just to try and protect themselves from each other or from the criminal element. He says he dropped his car off at like 40th and Clark or 45th and Clark. Until you get to that little bridge where you cross over, if you know where I'm talking about, where you cross over a little bridge. I don't know exactly what it's over. I never stopped and looked. But then you end up at West 14th and Clark. Well, now, all of a sudden, you feel safe. This is a guy who grew up down there when it was bad. So all you got to do is travel a couple of miles in any direction. That's the only reason why Tremont's working, is because it's surrounded by the highway and the flats on 3 sides. And that's the reason why Ohio City will never work. But if you had a casino in the flats, well, it's really not surrounded by horrible neighborhoods, is it? It's surrounded by downtown and Tremont. And the other side, down the hill on Clark or whatever, a couple of bars and the old West Side Mill. And now it doesn't go on forever. Well, that's why Ohio City, in my estimation, is never going to work. Because it's never going to go on forever. No. But you don't go stupid, do you? Walk around with 10 grand in cash in what's clearly known as a crime-stricken neighborhood? I mean, do people wander in Vegas? Oh, let's see. I just won a whole bunch of money. Let's see if I can find the worst part of town. I mean, if we're so broke we can't pay attention, I think we need gambling, and that's that. And so far let me put myself down in the yes category. I got 1 vote for no. Goldman, good producer Goldman, what do you vote? Yay or nay? For gambling or against it?
I most certainly vote yay.
Okay, I'll put you down in the yes category. Thank you. Yeah, because if people are taking their money out of town and out of state, or in some cases out of the country, it's got to stop. Could we, as fine citizens and members of the community, raise our voices enough to make a change? I hate the idea of just doing radio just to hear myself talk, or, we should accomplish something. Raise the level of discourse a bit. Call, I don't know who you're going to call. Can't call Senator Voinovich. He's probably against it. Maybe we need politicians to come out and run against the same old deadwood that we've had for so long with fresh ideas. Would you vote, even if you're a Democrat, would you vote for a Republican senator? If he said, I'm all for fixing the city of Cleveland, we've got a problem, it's raining, and there's no rainy day fund, we've got to try and fix the problem, we can get some developers in here. Would you vote? Would you switch parties, even if you vote Democrat all the time, or Republican all the time? Would you be willing to vote for someone from another party or even an independent if you thought they could win and they're going to try and make a change? People keep voting for the same old nice boy from the neighborhood, Betty Babushkin, pickled egg. Keep pulling the lever for the same old, and we know what we're getting. We know their track record, and it's just unbelievable. Ken, you're on the air.
Evening, Gilly.
Evening.
I would vote for gambling in a heartbeat. The sad thing is, in this state, it'll never happen because, the 8 guys that run the darn thing don't want it to be here.
Well, then we change them.
Yeah, good luck. I hate to sound so pessimistic, but after seeing what this country's done and given up on what used to be the heartbeat of America, manufacturing, making cars, caring about making cars well, as you probably gathered from prior calls, I supply the auto industry. I'm really good at helping companies make camshafts. In fact, next Sunday, your next door neighbor will pick me up at 6 a.m., drive me to the airport, and Ford Australia is flying me over there and paying my company $1,000 a day for me to play with their grinding machines to make camshafts for the Ford Falcon over there. And you know what? Ford in Cleveland, Ford in Detroit, Ford in America is more concerned with procurement than engineering and manufacturing and making things. And this whole ISO, junk that is in some of your dental ads and has been shoved down the throats of manufacturers over the last 10, 15 years has been nothing more than a way for those big 8 guys that run America and run the whole world to gather up the manufacturing information and process information to give it to the Chinese, to give it to the Indians. My company's lost half its workers, half its volume, as all the big jobs for making these pieces parts fly out of this country. That's the real ill of Cleveland. You could bring in gambling and help us on the road to escape from New York society, which is where I think we're headed. Or we could stand up and say, let's make stuff here. Let's do what made us great, since the Industrial Revolution. We've given that up in this country.
Well, we shouldn't, and it's a real shame that I used to sit behind this microphone and say, how do we fix the city of Lorraine? How about casino gambling? Now it's gotten to the point where we're talking about the city of Cleveland? It's that bad?
Bottom line is that'll contribute a drop in the bucket, and the drop in the bucket that'll come from gambling will be diffused as you get more and more riverboats and more gambling things, and that's the quasi-solution to this issue. The issue isn't, or the solution is not legalizing gambling everywhere. The solution is providing people in this country with a viable employment, to give them a standard of living that measures up with what we expect. Look at what Greenspan just did. He said, "Oh, you guys aren't going to get your Social Security. It's out of whack." It's all related to what's this stuff.
Yep, there's a big emergency if the boomers want their benefits.
You know what? We're getting sold a bill of goods. I feel like that conspiracy guy that's on your show all the time. I'm forgetting his name, the one with the Storm and Norman guy. I mean, we've been sold such a bill of goods. We're so stupid. We trust so much. We're so eager to go into a service economy. And you know what? That gap between the mega rich, the ones that pull the strings, and the rest of us peons is going to be huge.
It already is huge. I got to run. It already is huge. That's the problem. And I think we've just slowly let it happen to us. Do you think manufacturing is going to come back? And the Russians dump steel in this country because they owe us so much money that they have no way to pay us back, so we say, all right, well, we'll take some Russian steel. They're building Buick engines in China. We're on a global plantation and we're the slaves. And the super rich get even richer. When was the last time you had a raise? I can tell you when I had a raise last, 6 years ago. I'm not kidding. It is what it is. Bo, you're on the air.
How you doing, Rick?
All right.
Yep. The three magic words: free trade agreements.
Yeah.
Started back under Woody Wilson, in case people, it's nothing new. It's been hatched out by the big banksters and the shysters that run them, and the corporations that were trying to avoid the tariffs that we had in place to protect our industries, which were little by little lowered and lowered and lowered, whereas all the other countries keep theirs up. Now, recently when Bush put the protective tariffs up, guess what? Our steel mill industries revived a little bit in order to a point, and then guess what? The WTO steps in and said, we're going to sanction you if you don't drop those protective tariffs. And therefore, we have an outside body governing the United States, which is unconstitutional. So these treaties that were passed are unconstitutional, number one. It was never debated or voted on by a joint session of Congress. And what we need to do is null and void these agreements, restore our tariff situation, and do treaties with countries that want to do trade with us in a separate manner as we used to do.
I think that if George W. Bush does not get reelected, it's because of the economy.
That would be true, and John Kerry is going to basically, he wrote a book in 1998 that no one seems to want to talk about, that he was, following the same path of the Council of Foreign Relations on our war path through the Middle East. So we're not going to get anything different with Kerry. He's going to talk you tariffs and protection for the workers of the United States, but nothing's going to happen. He's going to say, my hands are tied. The WTO is handling things. So we have just allocated all of our powers to a third body of unknown judges that are going to make decisions on our trade policy. And unfortunately, because of our tariff situation, the people that we are subsidizing the companies to leave the country into Mexico, into China, and everywhere else. We're exporting our technology to them. This is suicide. These are people that have absolutely no loyalty to the people that gave them their millions and billions of dollars to do this.
It's a mess.
It's a real mess, and I guess get used to it. So let's get casino gambling, and let's bring in the people that do have the few bucks to the lakeshore and use that resource, which we don't use, number one. We don't attract anything and do anything on the lakeshore. So, I mean, that would help things. But as far as the other part, locally, what can be done is the schools need to be given over to local neighborhood schools and let each one in like a separate entity run itself from its tax base.
Yeah, I mean, the city of Cleveland coming in, I mean, this is just embarrassing.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at all the other cities that were up there with 28, 30% and poor. But don't forget how they make these poor figures, too. A family of 4 living, their own home that they have with 2 cars and 2 TVs is considered poor, making, $24,000 a year, but they have a house. So, I mean, these figures are also, ratcheted up by these, statisticians that make everybody poor. Because if you're poor and everyone perceives everyone to be poor, guess what? There's more government programs in the works. Think about that.
There's lies, there's damned lies, and then there's statistics?
Yeah.
Was that the saying?
Yeah, but I mean, statistics are true if you look at them realistically, but I mean, anyone can spin them, and, obviously it's an embarrassment that Cleveland came in, but guess what? We've lost 400,000 people in the last 20 years, thanks to busing.
That's an excellent point. I talked to a realtor who showed me printouts of how much the property values went down in Cleveland neighborhoods when busing started.
Exactly. Everyone fled the city. I was in junior high at the time, beginning junior high, and it's all the friends that I grew up with. Boom, half of them were no longer in the Cleveland public school system, and I went through it and was at the beginning of busing and just watched the schools deteriorate completely. There was no accountability, and let's ask the people, how happy are they with busing, and yet they just plod along with it as if that was the solution to their problems? Well, guess what? Now, 68% of them can't graduate. I would venture to say that about 85% can't read at a 7th grade level. I go, boy, that was a great idea. Thank you, Judge Battisti and the federal imbeciles that have laid that on us. And I think they knew this would happen because they're basically clearing out the cities. Now people can buy up the land in the middle of a city and at dirt cheap prices, right?
Well, yeah, good point, Bo.
All right.
Got to run.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I mean, this is enough to make you want to leave the city of Cleveland. This is enough to make you want to pack your bags and say, I'm out of here. I'll move to North Carolina, or I don't know. I'll move to Charlotte. It's funny because we are a little big town. People in St. Louis think we're pikers. They really do. And of course, people in Chicago and LA and New York, we're just a cow town. Whereas that's funny, isn't it? Because in actuality, I thought Chicago was a cow town. They were the one with all the slaughterhouses. Just ask Upton Sinclair. He'll tell you. Jake from Barkeyville.
Yo.
Do you want to do the weather with me?
I'd love to.
All right.
Is it Eileen McShay?
Yes, it is.
Sweet.
Triple Doppler forecast from TV3 meteorologist Eileen McShay. What do you think it's going to be tonight?
Low of 82.
Low of 82? No. Low of 60.
Wow, I was off.
Yeah, with some showers and thunderstorms possible. Well, how about tomorrow?
Possible snowstorms.
No.
Hail.
It's going to be sunny in the afternoon with high in the low 70s. Currently, what do you think it is?
68.
Boy, you're close, lad. It's 67. Top of the morning to you and the rest of the day, all to myself. Now, let me tell you also, all right? Let me tell you, listen for your chance to win a brand new 2004 Dodge Durango, courtesy of Claiborne Auto Stores, Claiborne Ford, Claiborne Dodge, Claiborne Chrysler and Jeep. Listen for your cue to call to win a Big One t-shirt and a key that could start that Atlantic Blue Pearl Dodge Durango worth nearly $33,000.
Holy heck.
The return to the tailgate party truck on the Big One News Radio, WTAM 1100, and we have one of those cues to call, I believe, coming up next hour. So keep it right here on the Big One, Cleveland's only news radio, WTAM 1100. Jake from Barkeyville, what's on your mind?
Yeah, that guy that just called, I basically agree with him. Did he have an idea what to do with the presidential election coming up?
And the Republicans get their chance coming up next week here, and it should be interesting to find out what they have to say. That's not anything different than we haven't already heard. Did you hear me reading that article about John Dean and how he was slamming the administration and how Dick Cheney lets George Bush wake up every day and think he's the president?
No, actually, I didn't.
That got buried on page A12 of the paper, and I thought it was just interesting because John Dean's been around a while, and I respect his opinion.
You know what? the things, I don't know. I don't know. I think the guy's a little slimy. Well, okay, not a little, a lot slimy.
Who, John Dean?
Well, yeah.
Well, I don't know if he's, I don't know. I mean, yeah, well, I mean, he was involved in a giant ball of slime with one of the biggest swine to ever occupy the White House. But I mean, you know, he's 65 now, and with age comes some wisdom, I would hope.
Wait, I thought that was old whores and buildings.
Cheap whiskey, ugly buildings, and whores all get respect if they last long enough.
I really don't know what to do because you guys are doing the same thing we did here. We got Edward G. Rendell, and why he had to put the G in there now, I don't know, but they changed our billboards and stuff. Now they say Edward G. Rendell. Like you didn't think it was enough of a gangster before with the ways that he talks and knowing that he ran the DNC.
Yeah,
you know,
she is curtains for you, she.
It's like, what are you doing? Well, the legislature, we're going to knock it down from the Pennsylvania state legislature only being allowed to own 5% of the slot machines that we're getting here that we just voted for in Pennsylvania to only 1%. Why would you be allowed to own any of it? Voting on it, it's unbelievable. When he got me the first time when he lost to Tom Ridge for governor the time before this. And they said, what are you going to do now, Ed? He said, well, you know what? I'm going to take some time off, and I'll be waiting for a call from the Clinton administration. And they're like, to get some kind of appointment, some kind of job in there. And I'm like, isn't this beautiful? Isn't this what we're against? Isn't this what Benjamin Franklin came outside and the lady said, what kind of government you guys making there, Ben? And he said, a democracy, ma'am, if you can keep it. And we haven't kept it. We haven't done our job.
Yeah, perhaps Jefferson was right when he said a revolution every 20 years.
You know, I hear people going, oh, no, you can't talk like that's crazy talk. You know what, dude? What are we going to do? Because, you know, Alex Jones is a nut, but you just said what he says all the time, you know, the prison planet, we're slaves here. And we still have rights, we still can do stuff. It's not as ridiculous as, you know, say Michael Moore says, the stuff he makes up. However, it's bad because they're both the same. They took the debates away from us. You can't even get into the debates anymore. Where do we turn? I mean, I write my letters, I do my things, but everybody else is playing fantasy baseball, football, fantasy Olympics. They have fantasy lacrosse now. You know, dude, you got that much time to do stuff like that. I have to work for a living, and then I have to try to take care of my family, you know, in my country. Because that's what whether it was God or whether it was George Washington said that I have to do.
Well, it's apparently come to us to do something, because I'm getting to the point where I'm tired of reading about people saying, oh, you know, Cleveland's so poor, and, you know, like the governor of Alabama saying you don't want to turn out like Ohio. He said it, the governor of Alabama. I thought Alabama was one of the poorest states in the South.
It is. It sucks compared to Ohio.
Yeah, but
I mean,
nobody
Ohio's really bad, and Ohio's a crap hole, but it's no Alabama.
Well, but, you know, some people don't even know there's a beach in Alabama, and that's good, right? Yeah, come vacation in Alabama. Right.
Oh, God. But what are you going to do? And like George Bush thinks he's going to get elected. Okay?
Yeah.
He thinks he's going to get elected when there ain't no jobs in Ohio left. And you were saying you're going to move down to North Carolina and do what? Used to be a textile worker?
No,
furniture worker?
No, I got to run, Jake. No, I'd get down there and do radio. Yeah, I don't know. I'd rather stay here and do radio. If I stay here, it's my responsibility as a citizen of the city of Cleveland. I live in the city. It's my responsibility to try and do something about it. More of the program after we do a little business with you and coverage of what in the world's happening. I'm Rick Gilmore, the thinking man's friend, and this is Cleveland's only news radio, WTAM 1100.
Breaking news as it happens. News Radio WTAM 1100. The following material may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
That's right. Put the children to bed. 578-1100 in the classic 216 area code. Toll free 888-723-WTAM. Great big voice man. Who am I and who are we?
The Rick Gilmore Show on News Radio WTAM 1100.
If you're on the line, be patient. I'm going to read for you an article I thought was interesting by Dick Fagler called Vietnam's Over, but the Lying Never Ends. Lying, L-Y-I-N-G. There's a place halfway around the world called Ho Chi Minh City that dozes each day in the Indochina sun. Once it was called Saigon. Turn the globe. Here are our graveyards where young Americans sleep under the sod and died to preserve the name of a town. They lost their lives, but they never lost a battle. They were kids, most of them. If you mingled with them, they looked like Boy Scout troops with rifles slung over their shoulders. They were there to prevent the commies from turning Saigon into Ho Chi Minh City. The suits in Washington had told them that they didn't stop Saigon from becoming Ho Chi Minh City, the world would collapse. San Francisco might become Ho Chi Minh too. So they went and fought and bled and died. The ones who died eventually got a marvelous memorial in Washington, close by where the Congress makes its big decisions. An amazing number of congressmen admit they've never even visited the wall. And if you did not live through Vietnam, you cannot understand it. But here's the punchline. If you did live through Vietnam, you cannot understand it either. Those of us who lived through it thought we would never see our nation so divided again, but we were wrong. Vietnam never went away. The discos of the 70s and the sitcoms of the 80s and the stock market of the 90s allowed a new generation of draft-free, carefree American youth to enjoy a 24-hour attention span. So Vietnam became quickly yesterday's sports score. But now, 35 years later, Vietnam has become a central issue in the campaign for president. And it's poisoned with lies just like it was 35 years ago. It's a rather lengthy article. At the very end, it says, Cleland, McCain, and Kerry fought in a war that should never have been fought, but they went. Our contempt should be saved for the guys who sign the order, but don't go. People keep making an issue out of John Kerry. He should never have made such an issue about the fact that he served in Vietnam. He did serve. He had every right to come back and throw his medals over a fence. Did he have every right to say that every soldier had a poisoned mind and was told by the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, Coast Guard, whoever, you're going to go over there and kill all the babies, which is essentially what he said when he came back. Cut off all their heads and stab babies and kill them. And did he have every right to... Was he upset about the fact that he had to go to Vietnam? Was he upset with the war? Yeah. Did he have every right to speak out? That's why soldiers fight and die for this country, to give people the right to spout off. Did he have the right to darken the door of every soldier that returned from Vietnam? We had every right not to listen to him if we didn't want to. I don't know why all of a sudden everything that John Kerry ever said back then was supposed to be gospel. How old was he? In his 20s? Think back on your 20s. Did you say anything dumb in your 20s? Did you do anything dumb in your 20s? Oh, dear God. If I had to remember everything I said that was dumb, that I regretted later in my 20s, I'd have some sort of a complex and I'd be, I don't know, weaving baskets in an institution. But I'm certainly not happy with the way things are going now. I think the lesson we may learn from George W. Bush is the lesson that we learned from George Herbert Walker Bush. Remember the old saying, like father, like son? Remember the old saying, it's about the economy, stupid? I'm telling you, I'm going to go out on a limb that unless something really stupid happens, we're going to have another 2000 election. We're going to have another, it's so close, we can't even count. I think it's going to be awfully close, unless something happens. If Kerry does something really stupid, or heaven forbid we have another terrorist attack, I keep waiting for the Bush administration to trot out the tall, bearded one, dragging his dialysis machine through the hills of Pakistan. Would that be enough to sway your vote if you're on the fence? Oh, we got Osama bin Laden. Do you think that's the end of what's going on? perhaps what we're in is the next Crusades. It's the Christians against the Muslims. I'm not certain about that. I'm going out on a limb. Storm and Norm.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Getting strong and getting heavy.
Well, it's getting bad around here. I mean, when Cleveland comes in 68th out of 68.
Well, I want to begin by telling you, I understand you want to have a smokers rally. I think you should ratchet it up and get basically neighborhood assemblies behind you in your program, because you're going to have all the talk show wannabes starting tomorrow, starting with, let's say, John Lanigan and that crew, talking about the demise of Cleveland, when I have had private discussions in regards to City Hall, the 21, ward barons protecting their ethnic enclaves. It's crunch time. Sam Forward's article the other day says, let's get serious. It's time to get serious. We've been serious for about, 7-8 years on a lot of different issues, and now all of a sudden we're bleeding all over the place in northeastern Ohio and within the state. See, this isn't just a local issue. This is a statewide issue. Now, casino gambling, just to give you a tidbit on this, the Catholic Church, the bingos, okay? The corruption down in Columbus won't allow it. What we really, I had a funny conversation with, believe it or not, the big Italian guy, the commissioner.
Oh, Jimmy
DeMora. Yeah, this is real short and cute. I said, well, the only way Cleveland can win anything is become an autonomous republic and annex itself away from the state. And he kind of went, what? And I said, that's for another time. I said, that's too heavy for you, because we could annex ourselves away from the capital, but then we got to become self-sufficient. That's even too heavy for your listening audience. But in the meantime, Rick, you've got a terrific opportunity to mobilize the smokers in this community, along with the hot rodders, the truck drivers, the working people that still have gainful employment, and do what no talk show host will do in the city, and start organizing people to challenge the status quo. Even the would-be honorable Ed Herman, who I've offered to come on Cleveland Beat News and Views, is basically backdooring and backing away from me. He says I'm too strong. Tom Myers from Channel 19 News basically told me I'm radioactive. Well, I took that as a compliment in regards to my letter, The City of the Living Dead, which we put up 2-3 years ago on our website. Something else that you need to do, and I broke my vow to you, I invited Trev to come on our program September 7th for a taping to identify all the major players that are underwriting the demise of the city of Cleveland. Now, I'm going to pull out their lungs September 7th. You, too, are invited to the taping. It's going to be...
well, we'll talk about that off the air.
Well, I want you to know, but you want to know why? Because, see, the radio management, and I'm talking throughout the whole network, mainstream media, TV, radio, the on-air personalities that have loyal listeners such as yourself have got to galvanize and come together to become a real army of doers, active citizens, to challenge the status quo, because we all in this county, this is a county problem. This is not a Cleveland problem, Rick. You know it and I know it, because we're all joined at the hip. A regional government, and I'm going to say this, and again, Rick, I'll take the heat on this, okay? Because of the ethnic background in the city and the great division in being the race issue, as always will be in Cleveland, we really can't identify it, because you'll be labeled either a racist, anti-white, or anti-black, whatever. We've got to come together as a community. The politicians play on the economic plight of the people that vote. That's what keeps them entrenched in power. We've reached a point in Cuyahoga County, like this pension Tim Hagan that's coming on the horizon in January. Rick, I'm going to ask you a stupid question. What can he do that hasn't been already done in the city of Cleveland? These are not far-forward critical thinkers. They cannot think out of the box. Give you an example like what Triv does. He always talks about all the old, sports stories. We've never won anything. That's all we know. We repeat our historical facts on a daily basis. We've got to become a winner, and this town has great resources. This is a big opportunity for people like yourself, on-air personalities on WTAM and the mainstream media, to organize and galvanize and have neighborhood assemblies of proactive citizens that understand what we're facing. Because we're all in this together, and I don't care how rich you are or how poor you are. We're all in this together. Where are we going to go? You're talking about, remember a few years ago you had an opportunity to go out west somewhere?
Mm-hmm,
you decided to stay here. You bought a home in Tremont. You're grounded in this community for all the right reasons. And for the status quo politicians to underwrite our own demise. Rick Gilmour, I know you're better than that. I know Trevisano's better than that. I know Lanigan's better than that. We got to take back our town and our community, and it's got to come from the grassroots. What we're really fighting is organized money. That's all what politics is organized money. And Rick, I mean, this is heavy stuff. And, I really congratulate you on doing what you're doing tonight, because I remember when you told me, look, Sunday night you want to make everybody happy. Well, guess what? Everybody's not happy anymore.
I know. I mean, I thought about it.
Survival mode.
Here's the problem, and I got to run, Norm, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think that the smoking issue, when Ladybug Jane Campbell came out and said she wants to ban smoking in the workplaces and in public places around downtown and in bars and in restaurants, I think that's going to take a back seat. I would hope that she just forgets all about that and forgets that she said it, because it just makes her look like an idiot. Just makes her look dumb. Raymond Pierce, where are you? I voted for you the last time. What has Jane Campbell done but cut ribbons? Trees are nice. People like trees. What? Couldn't you smell this poverty? She wants a poverty summit. Couldn't you smell the poverty in the air? Couldn't you look around and say, sheesh, we got problems? I'm tired of these politicians that just talk. That's all they do. Bob, you're on the air.
Hello.
Howdy.
Yeah, Rick.
Yes.
Yeah, Bob here.
Yes, Bob.
Hey, listen, I just want to throw a few notes at you.
Okay.
And the first one is, I remember back in the late 60s, early 70s, when Governor Rhodes was the governor of our state of Ohio.
The best governor we ever had.
He made one statement, and this was, profit is not a dirty word in Ohio. He set up and worked with Thistledown Racetrack, Northfield Racetrack, and he made our state profitable.
Well, now we need a governor that's strong again to try and get casino gambling.
Well, I'm not saying about that. I'm just saying about what Governor Rhodes did, okay? Because I know him.
Well, what I'm saying is we need a stronger governor than what we have now, because nothing's getting done.
Exactly.
And
when Governor Rhodes said profit is not a dirty word in our state, or in the state of Ohio, and that's when our state prospered. It prospered in the 70s and 80s with the steel mills and Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, and all the other plants.
The problem is with all the outsourcing and all the free trade and all that. I mean, I talked to a guy last night who was telling me that he knew back in the old days you could buy a job at Ford for $500. You could buy a job. And he knew somebody that bought a job at Ford way back when for $500, and they stuck him in the foundry. And it was so hot and terrible and whatever that he quit the job. And, he never got his $500 back, obviously, from the guy who sold him the job. But, the world has changed. The world is very different now. And we're not going to get our manufacturing base back. And
the manufacturing base is back because ISG, they tore down on Jennings Road over there where I used to work. They just tore the plant down. They're going to put a big shopping center in down there, as far as I know. And ISG, they opened up the electric furnace and BOF, and they're cranking like crazy.
Well, I certainly hope that at some point in the future we can be having a conversation saying at least we tried to make a difference and we're no longer the bottom of the barrel. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
All right.
And I got
to run, Bob. I got all these lines lit, and people have been waiting forever. I'll cheer you up a little. I'll give you a triple Doppler forecast from TV3 meteorologist Eileen McShay. Oh, Faith and Begorra. Tonight, scattered showers and thunderstorms are possible. Some flooding out there, possible. Low 60. Tomorrow, clouds early and the sunshine in the afternoon. High in the low 70s. Currently, 66 degrees in Cleveland. 66. Hey, ladies! You could be queen for a game next Friday night. Listen to Mike Trevisano, beginning tomorrow to qualify. One lucky lady gets, look at this, limo service, a massage, dinner at the Terrace Club, wardrobe from the team shop. Gets to meet Hammy and Matt and Mike and sit in the party booth with Kevin Keane and Mark Schwab. On a throne with a tiara, throw out the first pitch and ride in the Queen Parade with Slider. Listen to Mike Trevisano beginning at 3 here on News Radio, WTAM 1100. He's post-rush. And remember, you got to be a lady, okay? We don't need no guys calling up seeing if they can be queen for a game. You can be queen for a day. You can be queen in your basement. You could be Elton John, the first queen of England, but you can't be queen for a game. Greg, you're on the air.
Hi, Rick.
Howdy.
Big fan of yours. I no longer live in Ohio. I moved to Tennessee 8 months ago because my wife, who was a school teacher in Ohio, lost her job like so many did. I'll tell you what Ohio's problem is, and this is going to roll over into Cleveland's problem of the recent ranking that I heard when I was passing into the Akron area on Friday about your ranked number at the bottom of the heap for poverty now or something, or top of the heap for poverty, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Ohio has the second highest employee compensation tax in the United States. As long as that tax is that high, you're not going to get any new jobs and companies coming to Ohio when they can come to Tennessee, where I now live, who just cut their employee compensation tax that was the fourth lowest in the South to the lowest in the South, and a week after they did so, Nissan announced a new car plant in Tennessee.
So we should have the lowest in the North.
You should go. What your mayor and your city council and the people of Cleveland, and in fact the entire state of Ohio, need to do is throw out your legislature, get some guys in there. They're going to cut the taxes, cut the bureaucracy, and cut all the stuff that they're clubbing companies upside the head with to do business, so that they will relocate to Ohio and start hiring Ohioans. It couldn't be simpler.
All right, there you go. Thanks. Yeah, we've got to do something. I would rather have people working, even if they are building Nissans and Toyotas, than not working at all. Does it really matter? I'm enough of a car guy to know. Does it really matter? Ford owns a piece of everything. GM owns a piece of everything. Mercedes owns Chrysler. That's the best thing that ever happened to Chrysler. A bunch of these bigwigs say we don't want the Germans telling us what to do and how to build cars. So the Germans said, okay, you're fired. Look at the new Chrysler 300M. Nice car. Rear-wheel drive. Coming out with one that's 400 horsepower or 425 horsepower next year. Not exactly what we need in these post-peak oil production times. But hey, to each their own. People are still buying those giant SUVs. I don't have any problem with us trading with other countries. But it's a big problem when everybody's losing their jobs over here. At what point did we decide, okay, we're not just going to trade with other countries, we're just going to have everything built over there and then assemble it here and then say it's American-made. But if we could attract some jobs back to Ohio, why couldn't, I've said this so many times, why couldn't Voinovich be Robert Byrd, who knows how to go to Washington and allocate money for his home state, West Virginia? Why can't we get politicians that want to bring the money back home? You live here, don't you, Governor Voinovich? I'm sorry, Senator Voinovich. Oh, I don't know, Governor Voinovich. Oh, Senator Voinovich, because he pulls the strings behind Bob the Jellyfish Taft. Couldn't we get politicians that go to Washington and trot home some cash for Ohio? Cleveland needs fixed. We need help. Is there a rainy day fund? If there's a rainy day fund, I'll tell you what. It's raining. Hello. 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 Rick, you're on the air.
How you doing, Rick?
All right.
Great. And this is a great topic about casino gambling. Because I tell you, I go to Detroit every weekend. Put my money up there, as well as the Windsor, out of the country, as you're saying earlier. So if it was here, I'd be going to the casino every other day here.
But you'd be spending your money, and the state of Ohio would be getting the money, and hopefully put it to some sort of good use, which is doubtful under the present administration.
That's correct. But, I mean, I go to Greektown, I play poker every weekend. This weekend, matter of fact, I went to Greektown, played poker. You know, so...
Did you win?
I won, but I could have won here. I could have even lost here. I won't care if I lost here.
Yeah, we might actually, if there was a new casino in the flats or on the lakefront, we would be getting people from out of state that want to come here because if they gamble and they're willing to travel, they want to see that new casino.
Sure, they want to see a new casino. Plus, I work downtown, and I see the type of tourists. There's not many tourists that come to Cleveland.
Well, what we need, how about this? we get somebody like a Bally's in here or somebody like that. You build this huge casino, and we demand. Let's say we build it on Burke Lakefront, do we really need that airport? Let's say we build it there.
Right.
And then we demand of the casino, you must have at least a 1,500-room hotel. And so that way now you can start talking convention center, because now there's some place for people to go and do something while they're in Cleveland. They don't want to come here because there's not enough hotel space. And what the hell do you do in that town? They probably roll up the sidewalks at 10 o'clock.
Exactly. And in Detroit, people are saying about the crime. Detroit is probably the worst city for crime in the world. You walk down the street, though, there's 100 police officers on foot patrol, motorcycles, and cars.
Let's put it this way. Let's go way back. Way back before Greektown, way back before the casinos. You know what the nickname of Detroit was?
I don't remember now.
The Murder City. Not the Motor City, the Murder City. The crime was so bad. Remember, every Halloween, half the town would get burned down.
Sure.
All right, so I got to run, but yeah. I'll put you down in the yes, you want casino gambling. And it's running about 5-1. And I haven't even asked. I didn't even ask everybody. But it's just, it's so obvious that we have to do something. And if you had that big casino with that big hotel, now you could talk about trying to build a convention center. Why do we do everything backwards in this town? Let's build a convention center and then worry about where the people stay if they want to come here. It's just silly. More of the program after we do a little business with you and coverage of what in the world's happening. I'm Rick Gilmore, the thinking man's friend, and this is Cleveland's only news radio, WTAM 1100.
Rick Gilmore.
But I don't care what color you are. Dumb is dumb, man. That's just dumb.
On News Radio WTAM 1100.
This flash, apparently official. A day before the Republicans opened their convention, former President Clinton and his wife, Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton, spent the day reminding the GOP that New York City is still a Democratic town. The former president sought to frame the 2004 election in moral terms. Speaking from the pulpit of New York City's Riverside Church, Clinton said while he considers President Bush a good Christian, quote, end quote, that doesn't keep Bush from seeing things, quote, through a glass darkly, end quote. A Bush-Cheney campaign spokesman said it is, quote, astonishing that anyone would use a church pulpit to launch a baseless attack containing nothing but false accusations, end quote. Meanwhile, Senator Clinton made the rounds of TV talk shows where she said Bush's re-election would be a disaster. And that's the way it is. August 29th, 2004. Joe, you're on the air.
Hey, Gilly, how are you today?
Good.
Hey, real quick. Cleveland has turned into a government-subsidized town. I know a lot of real estate investors, and everything is turning into government rental. People are moving out of the state in droves because of a bunch of governmental bad policies. And, I applaud for what you're trying to do, but it's just so hard to break these policies. I mean, the jobs are already gone. Companies are gone. I mean, people are hurting out there. I don't know what people are going to do to bring people or business back to this state.
Well, what did people do when there were 35,000 people working at the steel mills and ended up being 3,500? What did those people do?
I don't know.
Did they leave? I'm curious. If you lost your job at the steel mills in the early 80s or at Ford in the early 80s, there were a lot of layoffs at Ford in the early 80s. And what did you do? Did you leave town? Did you just get a job doing anything just to put food on the table and then eventually worked your way up in that company to having a halfway decent job just because you've been there for 20 years?
But this era is different today. That they're gone. The jobs are gone. The companies have left or the plant has closed. Some of those jobs actually rebounded and came back.
If Ford leaves Lorain, Lorain is done. If Goodyear leaves Akron, Akron is done. Turn out the lights, close the door, nail it shut, and go someplace else.
I think Cleveland's done. I think it's just a matter of time. I mean, this isn't just Cleveland. I mean, this is the suburbs. I mean, I live in University Heights, and these school boards, they just continue to push levy and after levy after levy down your throat. Foreclosures in Cleveland Heights are at an all-time high. And what is their answer? We need another levy. I mean, these people are clueless.
Well,
then you look at their business experience. These people are in charge of $100 million budget. They couldn't run a pizza shop.
There are $200,000-$300,000 houses in Rocky River and Westlake that have been sitting for sale for over a year. There are people that own those houses that don't have furniture to sit on. They're driving a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW that they can't even afford to get the front end aligned.
Sure.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you bump your phone?
I must have.
Okay.
Small phone. Sorry.
Well, anyway, I hate to sit here and say, oh, well, we're just done and that's that.
No, what I wanted to tell you is I agree with you. I applaud your fight. I fight all these school levies. Not just to fight school levies, but our school system, for example, is on academic watch. And it's been on academic watch for 5 years running. And we've given them every levy they've asked for, and they have no answers on why they can't improve it. So is money really the problem?
No, money's not the problem. The problem is poor.
That's what they keep saying. They keep threatening that money's the problem, and that if you don't give us our next levy, then we're going to, they scare the parents by saying we're going to fire teachers. But they're not held accountable to get it off academic watch.
Triv and I are on the same page when it comes to this sort of thing. When it comes to the gambling, when it comes to the schools.
By the way, yes for the gambling.
Okay. The problem.
You got to do something. Like you said, you got to do something.
The problem with the schools is poor parenting. Parents think their kid's going to get a free breakfast, their kid's going to get a free lunch, they can be out of the parents' hair all day, and they don't get involved, and then that's why so many kids don't even graduate, is because their parents just look at school as a babysitter, like a TV. Here,
by the way,
watch this.
That teacher that called in from Tennessee had a very good point. I mean, just look at like the RITA tax. My wife works at the Cleveland Clinic. And she gets a tax from RITA out of her check because she works in the city of Cleveland. And then University Heights RITA, they come in, ding you, and send you a quarterly bill of $100-something every 3 or 4 months because you're getting taxed out of the city of University Heights. I mean, these taxes, they just never end.
I know.
I mean, for any guy or gal making $50,000 a year with a family of 2 kids, I mean, it's insane. How do you live on that anymore? It's because the taxes are so insane. Between the property taxes, this tax, that tax, it's nuts.
Joe, remember in 1974 when the lottery started? This money is going to go to help our schools.
Oh, isn't that unbelievable? And then everyone got their hands in it. And that's why, like, Triv actually had a good point when he was promoting for gambling. He was saying you basically have to have an overseer. And you got to get this stuff up front saying that, people can't grab this money. This money has to go here. This money has to go here. Because, back to your point about it all starts at home. Vegas has state-of-the-art schools. But the kids aren't the brightest bulbs because the parents aren't active in them. So you can help out the schools. But the only reason why I don't think I think the Vegas idea would do 2 things for Cleveland, the gambling. One is it would relieve some of these insane property taxes. And the other thing is it would provide some jobs. I don't think it's the end-all solution.
And I think if you're poor and you're a woman, you need to cross your legs. We don't need people pumping out babies that the government has to try and come up with money.
Look, it's incredible. And back to the other guy's point, and I'll say this, and you didn't say it, but the African-American community is in a lot of trouble. Over 70% of all babies born are born out of wedlock. And that's not to pick on them. I'm just saying they're in serious trouble.
Well,
as a community.
Let's just say it's a fact. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're white or black or Puerto Rican. It doesn't matter. Chinese. The deal is it's hardwired human nature that if a woman is with a man who will not work, who does not have a job at all, she's very unlikely to want to marry him. I mean, it's just like when women look at men and men look at women, and whether we realize it or not, when you find someone attractive, it's because you're thinking about what would the babies look like. And if you have one eye 1 inch higher than the other eye, odds are that you're not going to get as much action because people are going to say, oh, my God, can you imagine a woman looking at you if your eyes were all goofy and thinking, that's what our baby's going to look like. He's going to have one eye 1 inch higher than the other one. Oh, dear goodness me. So that's just the way people are wired.
I don't know how you're going to fix it. I think that long term it doesn't look good, and I've spoken to people that have been here a long time, and they're suggesting that this is the next Youngstown.
That's bad, Joe. I got to run. Yeah, that's depressing. I hate to depress you on a Sunday night when you have to go back to work tomorrow. It is what it is. I can't put it any other way. Cleveland's the next Youngstown? They always said that Youngstown is where old broadcasters go to die. They ship you off to Youngstown. Here, work there. I should probably take a road trip sometime and drive through Youngstown. I don't believe I've ever been in Youngstown. I've driven by it. What do you do in Youngstown? Do you just flee? Just get out and run? You know, there's no place to work? I mean, obviously, Youngstown still exists, right? They must still have police cars and fire equipment. They must have some infrastructure. What do they do in the Mahoning Valley? Call up. You can grab an open line. I'll open up the contest lines at 578-1111 for that. I want to hear from you if you're from Youngstown before the end of this program. And if they're on the contest line, Goldman, and they're not from Youngstown, cut them loose. That's what I want to find out. I'd like to hear from somebody. What do you do when your community just dies and withers away and shrivels up, atrophies? Did you stay, or did you just run away? Odds are, way back when, you probably ran away to Cleveland. I think we've got brain drain. It's been sucked out. All the smart people are leaving Cleveland, and all those dummies get to stay. Scott, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Rick. Excellent show. I'm sorry you're not in Vegas. We could use you out there.
No. Yucca Mountain?
Well, yeah, that would be tempting me to move back here permanently if that does go through. You know, you ever hear the old saying that Shakespeare quoted that something Caesar allegedly told Brutus? The fault is not in the stars, it is in ourselves, dear Brutus.
No, I guess that one flew under my radar.
Okay. That's basically what I can apply for this whole economic thing. I mean, it's 3 levels on how I see it. Number one, you've got a president and a Congress more interested in giving tax breaks to the super rich than coming up with an economic development program, something maybe like a WPA that might help people. You have a president who's continued his father's tradition of, because George Bush Sr. was responsible for NAFTA. He originated the idea. Clinton later passed it. But then you've got, under George Bush Jr. here, the Central American Free Trade Agreement that was signed, the South American Free Trade Agreement that was signed, one in Central East Asia that was signed, and now he said if reelected he wants to sign one with Africa. So can you picture if somebody can do the job in Burundi for 15 cents an hour?
A global plantation, and we're the slaves.
Number two, we come back to the state of Ohio. You have a total, incomplete, incompetent joke as a governor. You've had one party in control, the Republican Party, for 14 straight years, and all they've done is appeal to gun nut wackos and, bigots who hate homosexuals. What have they done to revitalize the economy?
Well, it's a shell game. You're supposed to be looking at the important issues while they steal money hand over fist behind your back.
And I mean, you wonder why we're having trouble with school districts. And I'm not going to be a huge defender, but I am going to defend them over some of the whining I've heard tonight. School districts have to come to you for property taxes if they get their funding cut in terms of tax income, tax revenue, and such. Used to be in the old days, I don't know if you remember this, I think in the mid-'70s, school districts had the power to assess their own millage. Basically come to you and say, look, if you live in Cuyahoga Falls, it's 8.2. If you live in Brunswick, it's 7.9. You remember those days?
Yes, I do.
And I mean, unless we go back to that, because I certainly don't think the problem is, too few taxes. And they did a Department of Labor Statistics study on March 15th of 2004. Ohio is the 4th least, that's least, tax corporate state for corporate taxes in this country.
No, I was not aware of that either.
No, that can be looked at very easily. So until you get a different party in charge of something down there and break up a one-party monopoly, because as Cicero said, the Roman philosopher, absolute power corrupts absolutely, you're never going to get an improvement. And then number 3, conversely, to go to the other side of the political fence, until you get a mayor of Cleveland who, and I'm going to say this, it's not necessarily nice, but every time I look at the woman, I want to take an insulin shot. Until you get a mayor of Cleveland that, or even in Voinovich's case, a United States senator, for either Campbell or Voinovich, Rick, name me one, or any of their defenders out there, name me one thing that they have done. Not two, not three, one.
I can't. I sat there and racked my brain, and I kept thinking, what we need is Raymond Pierce as the mayor of the city of Cleveland, although I don't even know if I'd want to run for mayor of the city of Cleveland in the current state it's in. I'm surprised that Jane Campbell has not resigned and just shook her head, washed her hands, and walked away and said, I don't want to be mayor of this town. What was I thinking?
You know, until this starts, and I always say this starts at the top, John Kerry may not be your ideal and may not be your panacea. And he may not really, in the end, have more answers than what we have now. But at least he's trying to put answers out there. He's not smearing and slandering Bush like Bush's operatives are slandering him. And I want to give John Kerry a chance at that office.
Well, we'll give it a whirl. We'll look for a regime change.
Yeah, Rick, think about it, because I know you've been not hustling, but, batting back and forth in your mind between should I do this, should I do that. Are you, or is your city, is your area, any better off under 4 years of Bush than it was before?
No.
Well, then that should be your answer.
All right, Scott.
Take care, Rick. Good talking to you.
You too. Your triple Doppler forecast from TV3 meteorologist Eileen McShay. Oh, tonight, more rain possible scattered around here and there with a low of 60. Tomorrow, the clouds will move out and the sunshine will be out in the afternoon with a high in the low 70s. Currently 66 degrees in Cleveland, 66 degrees. Listen for your cue to call on the Glenn Beck program, the 11th caller to 578-1111 in the classic 216 area code. Not now on the Glenn Beck program wins 4 tickets to see the new movie Mr. 3000 starring Bernie Mac. Glenn Beck is heard weekdays here at 9 on Cleveland's only news radio, WTAM 1100. All righty then. Kevin does business in Youngstown. Quickly, how bad is it?
How bad is it?
How bad is Youngstown?
Youngstown is real bad. I grew up in the Youngstown area, graduated from Youngstown State, which, by the way, is an excellent university. And as a freshman, though, it started there, and the steel mills were going down the tubes. The problem with Youngstown, in contrast to, say, with the Akron area, is they still believe the steel mills are going to come back, and they are not.
Amen and hallelujah. That says it all. Don't sit around and wait for everything to come back. It may not. It's getting near the end of the program. I should probably turn my cell phone back on. Of course, we don't want it to make any noise on the air now, do we? Come on, baby, talk to me. There we go. Got something I want to read to you. It's pretty interesting. Abraham Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846. John F. Kennedy was elected to Congress in 1946. Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860. John F. Kennedy was elected president in 1960. The names Lincoln and Kennedy each contain 7 letters. Both were particularly concerned with civil rights. Both wives lost their children while living in the White House. Both presidents were shot on a Friday. Both presidents were shot in the head. Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy. Kennedy's secretary was named Lincoln. Both were assassinated by Southerners. Both were succeeded by Southerners. Both successors were named Johnson. Andrew Johnson, who succeeded Lincoln, was born in 1808. Lyndon Johnson, who succeeded Kennedy, was born in 1908. John Wilkes Booth, who assassinated Lincoln, was born in 1839. Lee Harvey Oswald, who assassinated Kennedy, was born in 1939. Both assassins were known by their 3 names. Both names are comprised of 15 letters. Lincoln was shot at the theater named Kennedy. Kennedy was shot in a car of Lincoln. Booth ran from the theater and was caught in a warehouse. Oswald ran from a warehouse and was caught in a theater. Booth and Oswald were assassinated before their trials. And here's the kicker. A week before Lincoln was shot, he was in Monroe, Maryland. A week before Kennedy was shot, he was in Maryland, Monroe. Okay, thanks for calling. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Goman, for pulling the strings, and pushing the buttons and dials, and keeping this program on track. Look for you next weekend. You going to show up at the Taste of Cleveland? I hope so.
I should be there.
Okay, yes. And I'm looking for listeners out there in listener land to show up for a good time at Taste of Cleveland. We'll be live there pretty much all weekend long. You can be in the sports booth, or you can come see people broadcast. I'll be down there next Saturday afternoon. A good time should be had by all at the Taste of Cleveland on Labor Day weekend. And then the motorcade sped on.
Where were you on November 22nd, 1963?
News Radio WTAM 1100.